Welcome back to this very exciting section about storytelling. I call this section standing out from the crowd. The reason I do that is because each one of us has a story. We tell our own stories, and nobody can tell that as well as I could tell about my own, right? So, your brand also has a story, and it's all about how you are going to tell your story to set yourself apart from the rest of the crowd. And there is an ocean of content out there. There is tons of stories out there. How's your story going to stand out? In this section, you're going to learn all about that. So stay tuned. You should tell stories. Stories are an ancient, tried and tested method that works. So tell stories. But what kind of stories do you tell? As a content marketer, it's important that you tell stories that are relevant, that are engaging to your customers. It should emotionally connect with the person so that he or she understands what you're talking about. There should be a connection. And finally, it should have meaning in it. Your brand story must have an emotional connect and a strong meaning and relevance. That's when it will have any effect on your potential customer. It's not just about the story, it's also about how you tell that story. What I mean by that is the tone, the voice that you use to tell your story can make a difference as well. It's one of the major factors about how people perceive you, your product, your service, or your brand. So the tone and the voice makes it unique. Make sure your tone, your voice of your brand is unique. But most of all, let there be that human touch. It's that emotion that gets people connected with your brand. Tell your story with your own voice, a tone that is unique to you. Get started. Okay, so we've looked at telling the story, how you can have your own unique voice and tone that represents your brand and you from the rest of the crowd. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple of top influencers online that I really look up to. Number one is a person called Gary Vaynerchuk, or Gary V. He's the owner of VaynerMedia, one of the most popular guys on social media, one of the most powerful influencers on social media. The reason I like him is because of his enthusiasm, the energy that he brings to the table is tremendous. I love that. So your content, your voice, your tone all need to have that kind of uniqueness. Let there be energy. Let there be a little bit of a positivity, if you may, in the way you communicate. Another type of content or storytelling that really impressed me is quirky. When you think about a person like Avinash Kaushik, he's brilliant with web analytics and stuff like that, and his voice is more quirky, very unexpected kind of a thing. It's a little humorous. It's nice overall. So if you want to have your brand with a quirky voice, you could do that as well. And the third one that I really like is being genuine, right? Really being honest and transparent. And for that, the one guy that I really look up to is Pat Flynn from smartpassiveincome.com. So these are the three kinds of people that have completely different styles of really communicating and telling their brand story, but all three are impressive and unique from their own perspective. And that's what I'm talking about. When you come up with your brand story, make it unique, make it stand out, lend your voice, really make it your own. And that's what this session is about, telling your story, voice, tone, and making it your own. So far you've seen how to make it all on your own, create your own story, coming up with your own voice. We've also looked at some of the top influencers online like Gary Vee, Avinash Kaushik, and Pat Flynn, who are all great in their own style. Now, the next part is about tone. What is the tone that you'd like to adapt for your business, for your branding, for your content creation process? And that's what we're going to look at. See, the tone depends on a couple of things. One, who is your target audience? If it's about serious audience, you might want to communicate in a serious tone of voice. If your target audience is young and hip and funny, then you might want to take a lighter view of your content. Maybe you should add a little bit of humor and a little bit of logic and all that together. So it really depends on the kind of audience that you're targeting and the concept or the topic that you're discussing on. Here are a couple of tones that you might want to keep in mind. The first one is called empathetic, where you keep your customers' pain points in mind and create content from that perspective. That's called empathetic. The second one is more about data, research oriented. So if people that read your content are more focused on numbers and statistics and valid claims, then you might want to consider adapting that approach, data, research, and statistics. Then, of course, there is the honest way of doing something. So you can be very upfront, be as transparent as possible, which is what I like about Pat Flynn, like I told. So that's a tone that you could adapt for your content creation process. And the fourth one is called didactic, which is what we are doing right now. I am teaching you something. So if your content is about teaching somebody something, then the didactic approach would be the right one, or the right tone of voice to adapt. So that's what making your own is all about. In this section, we looked at the importance of storytelling. We looked at the voice, some of the top influencers' voice on the internet, and then we also looked at the tone. In the next section, you're going to learn something even more interesting. So far, you've put in all the effort to create an amazing story, a great piece of content, picking up the type of content that you like. It could be a webinar, a video, a blog post, or whatever the case may be. Now you're all set. Your content is ready. It's in the bag. It's about promoting. How do you promote that content that you spend so much time and money on? That's what we are going to learn in the next section. So stay tuned.